There's a new commit, Davit Boyajyan. I think that's how you say his name. I want to make sure I get that right. Time to make sure we jump into all of it right here on Locked On Huskies.
You are Locked On Huskies, your daily podcast on the Washington Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Huskies. I'm Roman Tomashoff. I'm here by myself. I am flying solo on this one. Lars Hansen, unfortunately, could not be with us for this today, so you just get me. Since we are live, all of our audio listeners who listen to this after the fact, I apologize. But for anybody who is in here, please feel free to drop anything that you want in the comments. I do appreciate Doug Robinson, who's in here saying, I turned off Josh Pat for this. Hey, I appreciate that. I'm very glad to be here. And we are talking about Davit Boyajyan from Clovis North High School, who just committed to Washington. He is a 3-star offensive lineman, and he is going to be, it looks like he's going to end up playing guard for the Huskies. When you talk about Scott Huff, there's always a whole lot to just talk about because he loves talking about versatility. Whenever you talk to Scott Huff, his biggest thing is always, versatility. We can already just point it out this year. Nate Caleppo, Julius Buelow, they both came in at tackle. They've been playing a lot of guard. Landon Hatchett, Parker Brailsford both came in at center. We've obviously had to see Parker switch over from guard to center after Mateo Mele was lost for the season. And we've seen Landon step in at guard. Gearon Hatchett, another example, plays at guard, plays at tackle. But real quick, since we are talking about Davit Boyajyan, it's just let's dive into the film real quick. I don't have any film to play for all of our YouTube listeners right now, but I think that there is a lot to talk about with him because this dude, the first thing that stands out is, oh man, he is a big kid, 6'6", 305 pounds, and there is a lot to like on his film. You can go check it out on his 247 Sports page or on his Twitter. And he's a really, really impressive kid. He plays a lot of tackle. Obviously, at that size, you're going to end up playing tackle in high school. But when you look at what he does really, really well, the biggest thing is he is a powerful dude. I can't say enough about what Scott Huff likes to recruit over these last couple of classes, because he has taken a lot of just, lower tier guys when you think of where they're rated by 247 Sports, but that doesn't mean that this kid isn't insanely talented. And that's one thing that when you look at his film, it's okay, 6'6", 305 pounds. The first thing that you really do want to just ask yourself is, okay, does he move well? And he checks that box, and he checks it in a big way. He's got really, really talented feet. And when he gets going downhill, you don't want to be in this kid's way because he's faster than you think. For people who are, 16, 17, they're still usually getting coordinated when they're that big. And he's somebody who, a year or two in Scott Huff's program and lifting with Ron McKeefrey. This is a kid who looks like he could be a legitimate player for this offensive line. And real quickly here, I just remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by LinkedIn, because these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you should check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. All you have to do is add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. That's kind of just like what the Huskies are doing when they're taking some of these commits. They just want to say, hey, we want to get you in here, do all that. It's really fun to see some of these kids that are just taking the leap and are able to play ball at the college level. And, they probably use these simple tools like screening questions, which make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. That's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1, delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Alrighty. All you live listeners out there, I do want to hear from you as we continue talking about Davit Boyajyan, the 3-star offensive lineman who did just commit to Washington, and he becomes their 13th member in this recruiting class. Let's take a look over here. Adrian Chavez, this is a really good question. Are the Huskies done with recruiting offensive line for the class of 2024? I don't think so. It looks like there might be one spot that's still open along the offensive line, and I would think the favorite right now to land it is Ignacio Tupu from Palo Alto High School, another Northern California kid. And Duquesne asks, any reasons why he's been under-recruited? That's a really good question. It always varies from player to player. So I can't give you one particular reason, but I was talking, just doing a little bit of digging as I was doing some research on this guy. And one of the biggest things that I found is that it looks like he was kind of a late bloomer, as Adrian Chavez is saying down here in the comments, where it doesn't look like the size was always the issue, but it does look like he's just having a really, really good senior season. And now that, some schools are finally starting to take a look at him, he got an offer from Sacramento State and from Fresno State in the last week. So it does look like his recruiting just track record is starting to pick up a little bit. And now that he's on Washington's radar, obviously he's committed to them. I wouldn't be surprised if other schools do try to kind of swoop in, as to quote Chris Peterson, as the vultures do sometimes. But this is a kid who I really do like his film, and I think he's going to be really, really promising. And there's also just a lot to like about this Husky recruiting class when you look at just kind of the kids that they have taken, because this is now the second offensive lineman to go along with Paki Finau from Oak Hills High School. And oh man, that kid can move. That kid's one of my favorite players to watch in this recruiting class, the 4-star offensive lineman who will definitely play on the interior. And just kind of as we look at the last couple of classes that Scott Huff has built over his time at Washington, I'm really curious just to kind of see the vision and kind of see who plays where, because as we look at the class of 2023, you see Landon Hatchett, who's already getting on the field, and he looks like a legit player. And I think that's somebody who could be just an impact guy in this offense for a very, very long time. And then you look at Elijah Jacket, the next highest rated recruit in the class, who's just a big projectable offensive lineman, really impressive athlete at tackle. And he looks like somebody who maybe next year you might see a little bit in spurts, depending on what Kansas State transfer Jalen Clem is asked to do. I think that he's somebody to keep an eye on as well, because technically he would be a part of this last recruiting class since he is just a redshirt freshman. And then the last two guys are a lot like Boyajyan, where that's Sione Fasolo and Kaylee Tafai, who are both just big, hulking, projectable dudes, where the measurables are good, the film looks good, and it's just a matter of, can you put it together on the college level? Because that's really difficult, especially at offensive line. And one thing that a lot of people need to keep in mind when you talk about offensive line film is one of the hardest things in the world to do for some of these kids is pass block. And because when you're that big, it's really easy to get going downhill. A really good example of somebody who, and this is not a knock on him in any way, is Gieran Hatchett. Gieran Hatchett's film from Ferndale High School was awesome. He, to quote a friend, he looked like a Mack truck in the run game, where he would just turn corners and run people over. But in the pass game, he did have a little bit more trouble. And it's not necessarily that, he wasn't a successful pass blocker, but it's just, that's not always the easiest thing in the world for a 16, 17-year-old to do when they're still trying to just learn a little bit more about how their body moves and what's best for them. So that, I think that's something that should be just noted when it comes to Boyajyan and kind of what's next for him. Is I think he has a lot of work to do, but everything that you see from him, there's a whole lot of potential. And I really like a lot of the things he puts on film. And there's a chance that this is excuse me. Live shows are always really fun here. This is not the last recruit that the Huskies are going to be getting this week. And we will talk about that in just a minute here, because first, just like Michael Penix, who just continues to change the game every single week, it's now time for your game changer of the week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Much like Michael Penix Jr., who is now the Heisman frontrunner, according to FanDuel odds, who just continues to just tear up defenses every single week, Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. And, a couple things about them. I think one of the best things about them is that they're fit for all times. You could drink them anywhere and make any activity even more enjoyable, like watching a big game, like the Sunday Night Football game between the Raiders and Steelers it's on right now, tackling work or working out, just really anything. And one of the best parts is no hangovers ever. So you can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you, or you can buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first order. And You can do that all at Athletic Brewing Company, at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers can use that code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Alrighty here. I really appreciate everybody who's down in the comments right now. Doug Robinson asked a really good question. How many recruits were at the game last night? There are always a whole lot, and it's tough to just kind of get into how many are there because there are a whole lot of, local kids that were invited for the game. So, and there are a lot of things where who knows, but I would say anywhere between 20, 25 kids were actually there. The amount with offers, though, whole different story. And Jucane asked the question that we were just about to get into. What are the odds of landing Josh Lair tomorrow? I think Josh Lair, it's looking pretty good. It's definitely still a battle, but the fact that the Huskies got the last visit for Josh Lair is certainly a good thing. And for anybody who's Josh Lair, I apologize for getting ahead of myself there. Josh Lair is a 4-star safety from Texas who came up on his official visit to Washington for the Cal game this weekend. And this is somebody who's had to reschedule his visit to Washington a couple times. He was originally supposed to visit during the big recruiting weekend at the end of June, but was not able to make the trip. And then it was rescheduled for the Tulsa game, but due to some family issues, he was once again not able to make the trip. But the Husky recruiting staff was able to get him up for the Cal game. And he did post on Twitter not too long ago, as we record this on Sunday night, that he will be making his commitment on Monday. And it sounds like he's deciding between Washington, Texas, and Baylor. And I think the odds of landing Josh Lair are growing every single day. And it's going to be tough to pull a Texas kid away from a couple of Texas schools, especially with the Longhorns going into the SEC next year. But he's somebody who is, not only is he just a really talented player, but he's somebody who fits this defense really, really well. My co-host Lars Hansen, we were talking about him on the sidelines yesterday, and he said, this just looks like a guy who a couple of years down the road can be Cam Chancellor-esque in this defense because he's just that big, he's that physical, and when you watch his tape, he flies around. And I think a good comp for him in the modern defense would be Dominic Hampton, and especially the way Dom played yesterday against Cal. He's just that kind of dude who flies to the ball and just does so much that you ask for in the defense. Just a big physical player who can come downhill and play and run support, can play man coverage when needed, but is kind of best over the top and just helping out wherever he's asked to. I think that's all we have for you today on this live show. Again, I really appreciate everybody tuning in, everybody down in the comments. Really appreciate all this as well. Last thing here from Adrian Chavez. Love this. I have all the faith in Coach Scott Huff. He was the holdover from the previous staff, and he's proven to be a great developer of offensive line talent. Just ask Michael Penix. You hit the nail on the head here. Davit Boyajyan looks like he's going to be a really talented player. And while this is going to be a smaller class in 2024, there's a lot to like about everybody in this class. And stay tuned right here on Locked On Huskies. There's going to be so much more just recruiting stuff as the year goes along, as this team picks up steam, because this is a really, really talented team to watch. And until then, please make sure wherever you're watching this, you like, comment, subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music. We're everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.